muted everybody in the webinar just so that we don't get any weird background audio, but in case you have anything that you want to ask, please feel free to drop it into the chat box, which you can probably find in the GoToMeeting platform, and I will be sure to respond to you there. If you want to send a message privately, you can select in the drop-down menu just to send it to me, and I can answer directly to you either in chat, or if it's something that the rest of the students will benefit, I'll answer it, but anonymously. All right? So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. If you have any trouble hearing me, please let me know. Drop it into the chat box so I can try and fix it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to cover is the summer session B schedule. So we this summer have 3 schedules which align with the different sessions. Session B is the first 4 weeks of the program. So it means that you will arrive to Prague on June 18th. That's the day that we expect you to be in Prague. And then for the first 3 days, you'll have official orientation activities. So I'll go through exactly what will be included a little bit later in the webinar. Afterwards, you have the first weekend free. We have some optional activities planned for you, but otherwise you're free to do as you want as well. And then Monday through Thursday, following the orientation period for the next 3 weeks, you'll have classes. So I will explain how that will go too. Your official departure day is on July 14th. So that's the day that you're expected to move out of your program provided housing. If you want to stay a bit later, 1 or 2 days, you book your flight later, and you want to stay at the dorm, we can request that you stay there, but it's dependent on availability. So if you want to do that, it's really important that you message me, email me, or Christina. You have her email address. Message one of us as soon as possible so that we can ask if the space is available at the dorm for you and confirm your reservation. There is an additional fee associated with extra nights at the dorm. Right now their fee is 500 Czech crowns without an ISIC card, or 375 Czech crowns with an ISIC card, and you can count on paying that to the dorm either in cash or with a card, so they'll take care of that for you. In terms of course registration, this is probably the most important part, of course, because you're coming to Prague to study. Your course registration for Session B courses will begin on May 23rd at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's Central European Standard Time in Prague time. So in the US on the East Coast, that's 10 a.m. In Hong Kong or Singapore, that's 10 p.m. And registration will happen on the ECES website, and I'll show you in a minute exactly how that will go. Spaces and courses are given on a first-come, first-served basis, and we have approximately 16 students or spaces per course. That can vary a little bit depending on the type of course, and for example, the number of field trips. Some of the courses need a slightly smaller number of students to be able to hold the trips that they have included, but you can count on roughly that number of spaces per course. In case a course fills up, which is possible, some of our courses are really popular and more than 16 students want to register. In case that's the case for one of the courses you're interested in, if you register for the course, when it's already full, you'll automatically be put on a wait list, and this means that once enough students sign out of the course, you'll be automatically added to the course from the wait list. And this can happen anytime up until the end of the add drop period, which is, I believe, 2 days after courses begin, but we'll explain that once you arrive during orientation. So if you want to be in a course, even if you see it's already full once registration begins, it's really important that you register for it as soon as possible so that you can get the highest possible place on the wait list. This is the best way to try and guarantee that you'll have a space in the course. So, the first thing that you need to do if you haven't done it already is register for the ECES website, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So you should now see the ECES website on my screen. This is your home on the internet for the 4 months or 4 weeks that you'll be with us in the summer. The ECES website has loads of information that's really useful for you, but as an accepted student to the program, you'll be able to log in to see even more information. So in order to do that, you should click log in. And then if you haven't already, you should register as a new user. And so to do this, you will type in your name. I've just created an account as a sample. Let's go with our date of birth, which I selected, and then click register. So once you've done that, you should be able to just register for the website with, for example, a email address or your own username. It really doesn't matter. And then create that. So once you've logged in, you'll be able to keep logging in with that same username and password. You'll see your profile here, which just has all of your personal information. So for example, you'll be able to see the details that we have for you in the system. Once courses start, you'll also be able to see your attendance record and your grades for your classes once your professors upload them. Here you'll be able to see activities that you've registered for, and under courses, you'll be able to see the courses that you've registered for. Right now, you won't have anything there, of course, because registration hasn't started. But to see the courses that are available, you'll click courses on the left sidebar here in this yellow bit. So this is a sample session B student. So you'll see the session B courses exactly as I see them here. And so these are all of the courses that will be available for the session B term. In order to register for a course, and I'll just minimize the GoToMeeting, you see this register column here. Right now it has a line. That's because registration hasn't opened. Once registration begins in May, this line will turn into a register box. So you'll click register to sign in. It will confirm your registration. And then once you're registered for a course, this register box will turn to sign out. And that's the same way you'll sign out of a course. So you can sign in and out of courses from the start of registration all the way through until you arrive in Prague, so you can edit your schedule a little bit. For session B, you can register for up to 3 courses. Keep in mind, though, that the courses meet for 3 hours per day, so registering for 3 courses will be quite intensive. It's probably better that you register for 1 or 2, but 3 is available for you in case you need to take that many credits. If you click on the section title, you'll see here the schedule for each course. The courses will meet every day at the same exact time. So it's important that you check that 2 of the courses you're registering for don't meet at the same exact time. We're in blocks. So we teach from 8:30 to 11:30, and then we'll have another 3-hour block and then another 3-hour block. So there's some courses which unfortunately do conflict, but we've tried to arrange it so that courses which students typically take together don't conflict. So make sure that you check that. Under the section details, you'll also be able to see the course syllabus. So if you need to get courses pre-approved in advance, you can download the syllabus and then send it to your advisor at your home university to have it pre-approved. I recommend trying to pre-approve a couple of extra courses than you actually plan to take, because it's possible that if a course is full when you go to register, that you have a backup plan, for example. So that's course registration. It's a fairly simple process, but in case you have any questions about it, please let me know. I'll also be sending out detailed instructions about this once we get a little bit closer to the registration period. In terms of arriving in Prague, like I said, your official arrival day is Monday, June 18th, and this is the day that we expect you to be in Prague. If you want to arrive a little bit early, you can do that. I will say that I know space at the dormitory is really limited this summer because of reconstruction throughout the entire dormitory system. So if you want to stay at the dorm, we can try to create a reservation for you, but it's not guaranteed. If not, I can recommend some other places that you can stay in Prague in the meantime. But make sure that you plan to arrive to the dorm by June 18th. If you arrive on June 18th, you have transportation provided to you from either the airport, bus station, train station, wherever you are in Prague, to the dorm. The only thing that you need to do is submit the arrival details form by May 31st. And I'll show you on the website where you can find that. If you go back to our website and click semester information, you should be able to see, and then you go to the pre-departure guide. On page 5, you'll see the link to the Google form here. Click on the Google form, and if you submit this form by May 31st, we'll be providing transportation for you. You'll receive an email confirmation from Christina, who is in charge of our housing and orientation once she's confirmed your arrival details. Okay, so, oh, So, in terms of checking into the dorm, once you arrive, a staff member will be waiting in the dorm for you. We'll give you a housing package. We'll check you in. It's good to know that sheets and towels are provided at the dorm, so you don't need to bring anything like that. All of that will be available for you. I will also say that a lot of students tend to overpack when they're packing to come to Prague, and it's not really necessary. You guys will be here for 4 weeks. It's a long enough time. When you come, we can give you directions to little grocery stores or convenience stores where you can buy toiletries, for example, your shampoo and soap. These are things which are really heavy that may put your bag overweight, and they're easily obtainable in Prague. They're not very expensive, so it may be worth holding off on those as well. The housing is suite style housing, so when you arrive in Prague, you'll receive your room assignments, and this is based off your housing application form. If you've not already submitted your housing application form, please do so by May 1st to Christina. This is really important because this is what we'll use to send to the dorm to give them your housing preferences. You have a housing coordinator living on site at the dormitory, and while you're there, you have access to a kitchen. You have breakfast provided Monday through Friday. The only exception is July 5th and 6th, which are national holidays in the Czech Republic. Classes will still be held because we don't have time to make up the classes other days, but breakfast unfortunately isn't provided. All of our dorms at Charles University have Wi-Fi available throughout the building. It's the same Charles University network that you'll have at the university buildings. And you'll have gated entry to the dorm with a Charles University ID card. So your ID card will allow you to enter the dorms. So in terms of where the dorm is located, Kamenskeho dorm is located in Prague 6. It's very close to Prague Castle. This map is a big map of Prague, so it encompasses pretty much everything out to the zoo, all the way south on the Vltava, the river. This is a big picture of Prague, and you can see the stars indicate where there are dorms, or where there are university buildings or tram stations which are relevant to you. So to zoom in a little bit, this star here, this is the dorm. The street name is Parlejova, and it's located very close to the Pohozhelets tram station. So as part of your program fee, you have a tram pass provided for you. This gives you unlimited access to the public transit system in Prague, so you don't have to worry about paying for that when you get here. It means that you'll be able to use the tram to get to the university buildings. Our main building is here at Náměstí Jana Plaka. So some of your orientation will be there, but you'll also have some classes over here, which is near the Palladium. It's sort of on this street, just above where the Museum of Communism is. And this is a building called Hybernska, or Spork, which is our short name for it, because it's the Spork Palace. And your regular classes during the semester will be held there. So you can see everything is relatively close. To get from this dorm down to the tram station closest to the main building, which is here, it takes about 10 minutes. So in total, you're looking at about 20 minutes to get from the dorm to the university buildings. Okay, so in terms of ECES orientation, on Monday, June 18th, you'll check into the dorm at any time, and then that evening you'll have a meet and greet where you have a chance to meet all of the other students. On June 19th, on Tuesday, you'll have a housing orientation in the morning. You'll obtain your Charles University student ID cards. We'll help you with that. You'll have a welcome meeting at the university building, and then you'll have the first part of your survival check seminar, which is a language and culture seminar meant to help orient you to Prague. On Wednesday, you will have your survival check seminar part 2, or you'll participate in the ECES day trip, and then the opposite will happen on Thursday. If you went on the day trip on Wednesday, you'll do survival check on Thursday, or vice versa. We'll have signups for the orientation day trip options available on the ECES website, and I will announce when those will be. You'll register for those the same way that you do for courses. And then, like I mentioned, Friday through Sunday, on the first week, you'll have optional orientation activities. So either you can do your own thing, or you can participate in the activities that we have planned for you. So, in addition to those mandatory trips that you have during the first week, you also have loads of optional activities available. Here I've just listed a couple of ones that we anticipate offering as a sample, but there should be some more options available and some options may change a little bit. So just keep in mind that you can check the website under, and I'll show you where if you go back to the website, under activities here. Right now, there is no activities available, but you'll see once we upload them in the next week or so, the activities which you'll be able to participate in. And so these are a sample of them. Usually the price isn't very high, or as you can see, there's some of them which are free. We try to keep the price low to make them accessible for you guys so that you can participate in as many as possible. We also have a guide to day trips and weekend trips within the Czech Republic. I'll be posting that in the ECES Facebook group. So if you search ECES Summer 2018 in Facebook, I encourage you to join the group. It's linked to in the pre-departure guide as well. That way you'll be able to connect with all of your other students in advance of the program, and you'll also be able to see this guide. So if you want to plan any trips for your weekends, you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week to do your own thing, explore Prague, explore Czech Republic, or even travel outside of Czech Republic, you can do that. So, in terms of preparing for your time in Prague, the first thing that you really should do, which most students unfortunately overlook, is to do some research about the country that you'll be living in for 4 weeks. So this means learning the basic history of the Czech Republic, and this really will help you so much to inform your understanding of Czech culture once you get here. The Czech Republic is a really unique country with a really unique history, and that history greatly impacts even the way that Czech people are today. So it's good for you to understand a little bit about this history, and it will definitely also help you in your ECES classes, because most of our classes are based in topics focused on Central and Eastern Europe, and Czech history is a big part of that. So definitely do this. And also do some reading up on the current political situation in the Czech Republic. That's really important also for when you're meeting Czech people. They'll be really happy if you understand something about the history of the Czech Republic, the current political situation, that you're well informed, that you can have a good dialogue with local people. That will go really far in helping you to integrate a little bit into the local community. In the pre-departure guide, which I'll just pull up so that you can see it, we have some really good information. Here's the Facebook group. If you click on that, you'll be brought to the Facebook group. At the bottom of the pre-departure guide is some really good information about living in Prague, and also some readings, some good websites that we recommend, some good English newspapers and English resources, also some travel books, some history. So I really encourage you to go through these resources to make sure that you get everything that you can out of preparing for Prague. The other thing is that you can start learning a little bit of Czech. Of course, you're not required to take a full Czech language course during the summer, but we encourage you to do so, because while you're here, you might as well learn a little bit of the language. It's a really interesting language, and yes, it is challenging, but at the beginning, I'm sure you'll find it really useful in integrating into Prague, into living in Prague. There are 2 free resources that we recommend for learning Czech. The first is an app called Memrise. You can download this on your phone and practice Czech. It's similar to Duolingo. Duolingo recently released Czech language on their system as well, but unfortunately it's not in the app yet, so you have to use it on the desktop version. You can also use it on your phone because their website is mobile responsive, but you can't download an app for it. But I really encourage you to start doing that. As you can probably tell, I'm not Czech, I'm American. Before I came to Prague for the first time 4 years ago, I spent months trying to learn some Czech before I got here. I can't say that I got very far, but the most important thing that I did was learn the phonetics, the pronunciation. Once you learn that, you will be able to navigate your way through Prague so much easier, because you'll be able to understand, for example, what the tram names, the tram stops are called, or important landmarks. So that way when somebody tells you, hey, meet me at Národní třída, you understand what that looks like when you're looking at the map. You really can't underestimate the importance of that in helping you get settled. And then another thing that you'll want to be reading about maybe a little bit, but also preparing yourself for, is that Czech culture is probably different than what you're used to here, as in here at home or anywhere else in Europe. Czech culture is pretty unique in the sense of customer service, and a lot of our students really comment on how the attitude towards customer service is really different in Czech Republic versus your home countries and cultures. We have students coming this summer from all over the world from many different countries, but I can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be different than anywhere that you're from. This means that Czechs aren't very customer service focused. It's just not an important part of their culture in the same way that it is, for example, in the US or North America or other parts of Western Europe. But tipping is also related to this. So it's not very common in the Czech Republic to tip for services. And if you do, you don't really tip more than 10%. Rounding up is very common. These are things that we'll explain to you also once you arrive, but it's important for you to start thinking about it in advance. So that way when you get here, you're not very shocked when the waiter at the restaurant on your first day isn't coming over to ask you how you're doing or giving you free water, which isn't common either. These things just aren't very widespread here. Also, the Czech openness to strangers is a little bit different than it may be at your home cultures. So Czechs in general are known for being more closed off to people that they don't know. And so that means that when you're walking down the street, you will definitely not find Czech people smiling at each other or saying hello or waving. If you do that, it'll probably make some local people think that you're a little bit strange because they won't understand why you're smiling at them if you don't know them. It also means that on the trams, for example, people will be really quiet and they'll notice you if you're being loud. So these are all things to be aware of, especially for your first few days in Prague, because usually they take students really off guard when they first get here. If you want to make Czech friends while you're here, you should be aware that it may take some time. Czech people aren't the kinds of people who make an acquaintance and automatically consider that person a close friend. It definitely takes a couple of meetings before they really consider that person to be a friend. But I always like to say that once you make a Czech friend, you've really made that Czech friend for life, because they don't take friendships lightly. So that's actually, for me, a benefit of the culture, but it does take a little bit of getting used to. Another thing to keep in mind is that Czech people are very used to taking public transportation, and that may not be the case in all of the countries where you come from. For some of you it may be, but some of you may not. They aren't used to taking taxis or Uber. Uber does exist in Prague, but it's actually not technically legal, so we don't recommend that you take Uber at all, because technically it's not a legal service operating in Prague. But there are taxis, there are taxi apps that you can use. They're just not very common, and to be honest, taxis are pretty well known here for trying to overcharge, especially foreigners. So using your public transportation pass that we provide to you for free is a really great way to avoid being overcharged for the service, and it's also a really great way to live like a local Prager. Czech people use transportation because it's really inexpensive and it's incredibly efficient. There's buses, trams, and metro, and there's always at least one type of service operating 24 hours a day. So it never stops. You'll always be able to get where you need to go. And lastly, the most important thing that I can tell you in terms of practical considerations is calling your credit card company and your bank to let them know that you're traveling before you come. This is really, really important, because once you get to Prague, if you try to use your credit card or your debit card and your bank hasn't been notified in advance, they may see that transaction as potentially fraudulent, and they may turn off your card, which is a huge inconvenience. It can take a really long time to get your card replaced, sent to you, if they can send it to you at all. So this is important. Also, if you plan to travel anywhere else in Europe while you're here, tell them that you'll be there as well, so that you don't have a similar problem while you're traveling. Also, for those of you who are paying ECES directly for housing or tuition, before you make those payments on our payment portal, you should call your credit card company and bank to let them know you'll be doing that, because this is also considered an international transaction. I mentioned the current exchange rate from USD only to mention that you've probably heard the cost of living in the Czech Republic is relatively inexpensive. This is true. The cost of living here is a lot lower than most of the places you'll be coming from, and that's great. But it also means that it's really easy to go over your budget while you're here because you think that everything is so inexpensive that you start buying way more things than you usually would at home. This is especially true when it comes to food, to groceries, and also to drinks. I guess probably you've heard the saying that in Prague or in Czech Republic, beer is cheaper than water. Yeah, it's true. In a lot of restaurants, you can buy a beer for less than it would cost you to buy a water in that restaurant. But you should be aware that the sizes of beers, for example, are much bigger than you might find at home, and also the content of the alcohol can be a lot stronger. So if this is the first time when you're living in a country where it's legal for you to purchase alcohol, be aware of that as well. But the most important thing that I'm recommending here is to be aware of your budget. To set a budget in advance, be aware of how much you're spending, and be really diligent about it, because it's easy to get carried away in a country where it seems like the cost of living is very low. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that you'll need European-style adapters for your electronics. So I think that all of our students this semester are coming from outside of the EU, and so it means that all of you have different sized adapters or different sized plugs than we have here in Europe. You can buy these adapters really cheaply on Amazon, for example, on most websites that sell random stuff. They're pretty inexpensive, so I recommend that you get a couple of them because they're easy to lose and they're cheap. But be aware that these only adapt the shape of your plug. It does not change the voltage. Most of your electronics don't need voltage converters. Most of them will convert the voltage automatically, like your laptops, your phones, your cameras, whatever, most modern appliances. If you're worried, you can check with the manufacturer, but for the most part, you should be okay. The only thing that you need to be careful of is heat-producing appliances. This is things like hair dryers, hair straighteners, curling irons, that sort of thing. We don't recommend that you bring these from your home country, especially if you are in a country where the voltage is lower than in the Czech Republic, because they can still overheat, even if you're using a converter. It's happened to me, and it's happened to loads of students where you're using an adapter and a converter and the electronics still overheats, and it can be a really big fire hazard. So if you're going to be here and you need to use these items, then you can purchase them here pretty inexpensively, and it'll save you a lot of worry about whether or not your voltage is being converted properly. If you're planning on going to the UK at all during the semester and you have the American plugs that you're used to at home, you'll also need an adapter for the UK. So just keep that in mind. The other thing that I want to mention that isn't specifically listed here, but that's really important, is that in Prague in the summer, it can be pretty hot. In Fahrenheit, it can be upwards of 80 degrees or even a little bit higher if we're having a particularly strong heat wave. For a lot of you, that doesn't sound very hot. A lot of you are from really warm weather climates. However, if there's no air conditioning in any buildings, then it feels a lot hotter than it sounds. And in the Czech Republic, along with most European countries, we don't have air conditioning in most buildings, and that includes at the university and in the dorm. It's just not common to have air conditioning in most buildings here in the Czech Republic. So it means that you should just dress appropriately. You know, wear shorts and light clothes, even for sleeping, because we don't want you to be uncomfortable in the heat, especially if you're not used to being in a warm environment without air conditioning. So just be aware of that. The last thing that I want to mention is that we recommend you get an ECES card before you come. This is an International Student Identity Card, and most Charles University students get them. It's recommended officially by the university, and an ECES card will give you access to student discounts that your Charles University or home student ID cards wouldn't necessarily give you access to. This is common, especially outside of the Czech Republic, that you would need an ECES card to get a student discount. Your Charles University one may not be enough. In Czech Republic, for the most part, your student ID card will be sufficient. The ECES card isn't very expensive, and you can check on their website, which is listed here, what they offer in terms of discounts. If you think that you'll be using a lot of those services, then it may be useful for you to purchase one in advance. Keep in mind that you do have to buy it in your home country, and it takes a couple of weeks to have it sent to you. So if you want to do that, you should get on it right now to make sure that you have it in time before you leave. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information in half an hour, but that's all I have. Do any of you have any questions that you need me to cover? I haven't seen anything come through in the chat box yet, so I'll give you a minute in case you can think of any questions. Of course, if you come up with any questions after we end the webinar, you're more than welcome to email me or any of my colleagues. Any of us will be happy to help you before you come to Prague. We'll be happy to answer those questions for you. All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming through. Thank you guys so much for attending. I hope that it was useful for you. Like I said, I'll be sending out the recording of the webinar so that the rest of the students will also have a chance to hear the information and also ask questions. So you'll be getting that YouTube link soon. But for now, I hope that you have a good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are, and I'll see you in Prague.